Welcome to Law to Talk About. I'm Jay Cleary, your host. Before I introduce you to my guest for tonight's program, I'll read our disclaimer. This program is sponsored and produced by the Haverhill Bar Association as a public service. The legal matters and issues discussed and presented during the course of this program are not intended to constitute legal advice or counsel. The subject matter discussed on Law to Talk About is for general educational and informative purposes only. If you have specific legal questions, please consult with an attorney. Well, tonight's program is about scams and efforts to divest people of their money for things that are not needed. In other words, my guest attorney Stuart Holber and I are going to talk about some recent mailings and publications that have gone out to people, as well as a recent article in today's Boston Globe about attempts to try to scam people. And so here's my guest, Stu Holber. Stu, thanks for doing the program with me.
Thank you for inviting me.
Stu Holber's an attorney with offices at 150 Summer Street in Haverhill. We did a show together probably about 7 or 8 years ago on bankruptcy, but tonight we're going to talk about something that affects a lot of people who may unwittingly be asked to send money to various groups for something they absolutely do not need. And tonight we'll start off by talking about this one particular notice that a client of mine received, Stu, about a week and a half ago. And she had recorded a deed, or I had recorded a deed for her at the Registry of Deeds in Salem, placing some property into a trust. That's a public record. Anybody can look it up online at the Registry of Deeds website, any transaction. She called me up and said she got something in the mail. It was called a deed processing notice, and we'll show it to you on the screen in just a minute. And she said, it has a compliance date of July 12th, and I'm supposed to send $83. And I said to her, it sounds like a scam to me. Please bring in the paper. Let me take a look at it. And it's on the screen right now. Let's talk about it and what this scam's all about.
Jay, this is an amazing document. Somebody has really thought this through and has found buzzwords and given just enough law to give it some authentication on the second page, none of which basically has to do with this transaction.
Right.
And they found a way to prey on people's lack of knowledge in this area and made them sound very important.
Right. And so as we're looking at the form, as we were looking at it a minute ago, and we'll have it on the screen again, it came from Wilmington, Delaware, a company called Property Transfer Services, and it said deed processing notice. And as we're showing you on the screen, maybe you could comment on this, Stu. Why you need a copy of your current grant deed and property profile. Well, we don't call them grant deeds in Massachusetts, do we?
No, we don't.
Yeah.
And the important thing is that people who aren't educated to this, non-lawyers, they don't understand that once the deed goes on record, that document has no value at all.
Right.
And that's what we do for a living. We
Right.
see that things are recorded and they become part of the law, and as a result, almost everything that these folks want to do is of no value.
Right. In this particular notice, the client or the person who had a deed recorded was notified that for a mere $83, this Property Transfer Services from Wilmington, Delaware, would obtain a copy of her grant deed or other record of title, supposedly certified. And the company recommended that all Mass homeowners obtain a copy of their current grant deed in a property profile, whatever that might be. And this is all public record.
That's right, and you can obtain that in this state at least, free of charge.
Right.
You can go online right now to lawrencedeeds.com or salemdeeds.com and see your deed, push the button and print it right on your home computer.
It doesn't cost you a nickel.
Nothing.
Nothing at all. And so with this notice that went out, they said to obtain a copy of your deed and complete property profile, please detach and return in the enclosed envelope with a processing fee of $83. You will receive your documents and report within 21 business days. Now, you just said that you could go online right now to salemdeeds.com or lawrencedeeds.com, depending on where your deed's recorded, print it and have it within seconds.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And it runs 24 hours a day, 7 days
Yeah,
a week.
7 days a week. So they're asking for $83 for something that people don't need and have no reason to pay for. But they're, as you said, they're trying to take advantage of people that may not understand this.
And they're preying on people who think that they need certified copies. That's why this last paragraph is here. But I can't imagine why anyone would need a certified copy of their deed.
Indeed, correct.
So it doesn't matter what it costs or who
Right.
charges for it.
Right.
It's unnecessary.
Another thing about this little notice that went out from Property Transfer Services, they've got a nice little disclaimer language in there. As you said, they're very clever. The disclaimer said, the company Property Transfer Services is not affiliated with the state of Massachusetts or the county recorder. Property Transfer Services is an analysis and retrieval firm that uses multiple resources that provide supporting values, deeds, and evidence that is used to execute a property report and deliver requested deed. And it is not affiliated with the county in which your deed is filed. So they've even thrown a little disclaimer in there. And on top of that, they included an envelope with paid postage. 46 cents is already paid, so you can send that check for $83 to them. And that check was going to be mailed to Property Transfer Services, the Deed Processing Center in Thousand Oaks, California, for $83. So if you've had a deed recorded recently at the Registry of Deeds, whether you were putting property into a trust, maybe transferring it to a family member, a child, or a simple real estate transaction, and you get this deed processing notice in the mail, what's your advice?
Well, I would throw it away.
Throw it immediately, throw it away.
And it's not just aimed at people in this county. I've obtained free deeds by going online in New York, in Florida, in Illinois, and California. There are many registries that do that in this country, and you don't need this service for any of them.
No, and one other thing about it, they've got a compliance response date. We'll put that on the screen. And it also has a document number. Now let's talk about the document number. You think somebody just started hitting buttons on their computer to come up with these figures?
Yes, because they make no sense at all.
Yeah, they make 0 sense at all. But calling it a compliance response date, that might cause somebody to say, whoa, I better get this taken care of by July 12th.
Some urgency to it.
Some urgency to it. So this is nothing more than an effort by some company somewhere to try to take advantage of people. And all they need to do is find 10 people, and they've made $830. 10 times 83. You multiply that by a few more, and they've made some money here.
I'm sure they'll find many more that'll write that check.
Yeah. They even say, make your checks payable to Property Transfer Services. Please write the property number in the lower left corner of your check, like it's going to make a difference. Yeah. And they also want your phone number. And it's got all this language, about what is property title, what is a property deed, forms of property ownership. Absolutely useless information.
That's right.
Yeah. So that was the impetus for tonight's program. When my client called me up and I took a look at this, I thought, let's get this out through community television at the very least to put people on notice that if you get this in the mail, as you said, throw it in the wastebasket.
What other ones have you found?
Well, there's other internet scams going on, and I just got one the other day in my office. If you get emails and you think they look like they're real, you better think twice. This one was from FedEx Home. Well, I don't have any contracts or relations with FedEx Home. I use a different carrier. But the email said, your FedEx login account will be suspended. Really? And dear customer, we have revamped our standard security procedure to ensure the online experience for our customers continue to be safe and impeccable. Well, there was a little bit of a tip right there. Number one, how about the grammar and the use of the English language? In other words, the sentence makes no sense, which led me to believe that this was probably done in another country, certainly not in the United States. And on the FedEx Home scam email I got, it said, on July 3rd, 2013, all FedEx customers will need to verify their passwords to help protect your accounts from unauthorized access. And then it said simply click here to update your password. And then finally it went on to say, warning, the account owners that cease to update his or her account, once again, great grammar, after 1 week of receiving this notification will forfeit his or her account relinquished. Great English grammar again. So,
But they gave you that urgency to make
Yeah.
you really want to do it right
yeah,
away.
exactly. And that was from my FedEx online team. It was a scam email. It had the FedEx logo there. Obviously, it didn't come from FedEx. You don't have a contract with them. So what they're doing is they're sending out these emails, whether it's FedEx, I've got them from PayPal, you name the group. If it's an online group, there are people out there trying to find targets who will respond, and once you respond, they've got you, because now they're going to either put a virus in your computer, or even worse, if you respond to them.
Or they have
know?
some kind of information from you that they can sell to someone
Exactly,
else.
exactly.
Yeah. I saw one over the weekend called the Facebook Lottery. And I opened the screen, and the Facebook Lottery announced to me that I won $5 million.
Already?
And I thought, well, summer weekend,
Yeah.
it'd be nice to have $5 million on Monday morning. And then it asked for telephone number, contact information, my occupation. And I'm looking at this thing, and I thought, this, as much as I would have liked the $5 million,
Dollars.
it didn't seem right to me. So I went to my web browser, and I typed in Facebook Lottery, and what came along was a 20-page document or an 18-page document with people who were talking about this as a scam.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a scam. No one's going to,
Sure.
I don't have that kind of luck.
Yeah, yeah.
But the changes over time, they all discussed the same basic scam, but they had various nuances.
Yeah.
And they're obviously going to sell this information, or as you said before, there's some nefarious purpose to it.
Right.
Perhaps they're going to put a virus in your computer.
Or something like that. You know, it's interesting, Stu. Probably 12, 14, 16 years ago, I did a TV show about mail scams, M-A-I-L. It was the clearinghouse winners and all of those different types of lotteries that all came through the mail. And in fact, I had an inspector from the U.S. Postal Service as my guest on Law to Talk About. And we were talking about the laws for any type of illicit activity that was happening through the United States mail. Fast forward, here we are in 2013. Now, what was previously sent through the mail, and it was subject to certain federal penalties because of the fact it was through the mail, now it's all coming through the internet.
It's
A lot of it.
It's the Wild West, the
Yeah,
internet.
yeah.
And they just took all the old scams and made them faster.
Right, right.
And since many people have computers and they really are in awe of them, they obviously send the money in.
Sure, yeah.
I found a site, if it's any help, called scam.com.
Let's talk about that for a few minutes.
I had heard about this from a client before, and if you sense that the email you're looking at is a scam, you can first test it by going to scam.com, and they give you categories of what's out there, and if it fits into one of the categories, you hit the link, and up pops the various scams that have happened. It's a nice place to go.
Yeah.
It's free, and it tells you that this scam is out there. They don't know who's perpetrating it,
Right.
but they know it's there so you can protect yourself.
Yeah.
And there are pages and pages and pages of information, all for merely pushing the button. And it's something that I would recommend everyone to do.
Right. And also now, with the internet scams becoming more and more prevalent, had a television program about a year and a half ago with District Attorney Jonathan Blodgett, and he said there's a whole subsection of the District Attorney's Office, as well as the Attorney General's Office, that are just dealing with cyber crimes, as well as the FBI for that matter. They're all looking into cyber crimes. Some are more nefarious than others, but it's just become such a large problem, and so many people are responding to it. They've had to try to deal with it best as they can legally. But what Jonathan Blodgett, the DA, said to me was, Jay, a lot of these are generated in other countries. He said could be the former Soviet Union blocs. He said it could be coming from Pakistan, it could be coming from Southeast Asia, it could be coming from Africa, other continents, he said. So there's no way to even control where some of these scams are coming from, because you look at them and say, well, where do you think this is coming from? We have no idea, but you can tell by just the misuse of the English language.
They're
that it's
one
not
step
local.
ahead of law enforcement.
Yeah,
Eventually, law enforcement will move forward,
right,
and then they'll invent something else to
Yeah.
keep ahead of it.
yeah, exactly.
There's always been scam artists.
Sure, sure,
And, P.T. Barnum.
Right.
And that this is just a continuation of it.
right.
So,
And the deed one in particular, I found particularly disturbing because when you get a notice like the one we talked about at the beginning of the program, and it says it's got a compliance date and it's got a code number and there's a barcode on the top that makes you feel as though it's important, and then they give you the disclaimer which really tells you nothing and tells you that it's very important you have a certified copy of the deed to your house, or if you can't find the deed, you better have it. Most people don't realize, even if you don't have your deed at home, it's not a big issue because you can always get a copy at the Registry of Deeds. They're all recorded there. They're yours for free. But what they're doing is trying, I think, to take advantage of people that, you record a deed once or twice in your life if you own one or two houses, and that's it. So it's not something you do day in and day out. So you get a notice like that, and you figure, wow, I better get it.
the possession of the deed is important if it was never recorded,
Right.
because that is proof of the transfer of the
Right.
property. But once recorded, the document has no more value.
Yeah, exactly.
And did you see the article in the Globe today?
Let's talk about that. Today's Globe, we're taping here on July 10th, 2013. So why don't you talk about that article? Well, both of us have it in our laps as we're talking.
It was in the finance section, and it's about a company called Change My Address. And Change My Address charges $19.95 to arrange with the post office that your new address be posted so that your mail is forwarded. The problem with that is that the post office will do it free
Yeah.
if you do it through the postman or by mail, or it costs $1 if you go online to do it. And the story starts about a man in Palm Beach who had 3 charges for $19.95 on his account.
Wow.
And he could have done it for nothing.
Yeah.
And this is just another scam and another way for people to make money for a service that is unnecessary.
Totally unnecessary. And in this article in the Globe, they talked about any transaction having to do with your mail should be done only on the U.S. Postal's website, which is USPS.com, USPostalService.com. That's the only website you need if you're dealing with postal information. Any other website is not going to help you, and it's probably going to try to take some money out of your wallet or pocketbook.
But if you've never been on that site before, how would you know that this
Exactly.
isn't the real site?
That's right.
And they're made clever enough
Yeah.
so that a novice will not know that they're dealing with a false site.
Yeah. Now, this site you're talking about, it's an ongoing scam. And in March, it said the Better Business Bureau in both Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio, joined forces to investigate and issue a warning about the website. So it's national, as you said. It happened in Florida. Now we're looking at Ohio. And the Better Business Bureau did an investigation, determined that the company that operates the service is called Form Giant LLC, for limited liability company. And consumers who paid discovered the company did not update their addresses after all, and they were trying to seek their money back. They're not going to get it back, unfortunately, in all likelihood.
That's right. It's another version of P.T. Barnum's
Yeah.
big sign, 25 cents this way to the egress.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's very little different now. And if you're the older people, I'm not sure how.
Yeah. Seniors.
Seniors, thank
Yeah.
you.
We're juniors.
Not much longer.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure they're taken in, and it's not 10 or 15 people.
Right.
It's many, and eventually, when it gets too hot, they'll shut this down, and
Sure.
they'll do it again through some other
They'll set
company.
up somewhere else and move on, and set up another name or do something like that.
It was interesting. It was in today's Globe, of all things.
Yeah, talk about timing. But that's something as innocuous as just, well, we're moving, we got to get our address changed. You go down to the post office if you have to. You go up to the counter and ask them for a change of address form. They give you a little package with a little form to be filled out. You sign it, you fill in your new address, your old address. They have some other information with it, and leave it at the post office. It doesn't cost you a dime unless you're parking in downtown and it's 50 cents for a meter now. But other than that, it's still a pretty good deal.
As long as there's a post office, it's a good deal.
Yeah, it is a good deal. So that's another example. I'll give you another example of a scam. This happened within the last 3 weeks. Got into the office, opened up my computer. There's an email from a client who I haven't seen or talked to in maybe a year and a half. You do the work for a client, and then they go on their way, and there's no need to keep in touch. So I looked at it, and my emails say spam to begin with, so I'm always a little bit leery. And I clicked on, and it was a note from this particular client, but it was done at like 5:38 a.m. And the use of the English language was atrocious. The words were totally out of context. The grammar was wrong. And it was just a crazy note. You know, I will get in touch with you, something like that. I need to speak to you, or can you contact me? So I knew it wasn't from him. I knew it wasn't from him, A, because of the time of the day that it was sent, and B, because the language was just so horrific, the English language. But I did call him up just to let him know that I got an email from his quote-unquote address to tip him off that somebody may have hacked into his computer somehow to look at the names of people that he had sent emails to maybe over a year and a half, which I think is a pretty scary thing. So I told him, be careful, and if anybody calls you that they got emails from you, tell them not to open them. You know, that I found, it's just kind of like random. It's like a wild coyote just kind of prowling out in the woods doing whatever they want.
I see those all the time also.
Do you?
And it's
Yeah.
very scary.
Yeah.
And when it comes here, you know it's not from your client.
Right.
But what's the purpose behind it?
That's what I wonder.
I mean, there's nothing they're going to get from you
Right.
unless they can get access to your system, and then there's private documents and
Right.
information.
Right. Right.
That's the last big scam, the way people can invade companies' private databases
Yeah.
to get information about their customers.
Right.
You know, how long before someone can do it in a hospital?
Sure.
So that's something else that has to be watched also.
Let's talk about a couple other examples on the scam side, the internet, because I've seen them both. One is an email that's allegedly from the U.S. Internal Revenue Service, and one I got a number of years ago. I had an American eagle that looked so bad I thought it was a chicken with its feathers plucked. So somebody wasn't a great artist, so they threw an American eagle to make you think you actually got an email from the IRS, which is even funny, but funnier still, telling you you're entitled to money and just click on this link and you'll get your money back that the IRS owes you. The IRS never does that, ever. So if you get an email from the IRS, believe me, it's not from them. That they don't operate that way. And they don't have a little American eagle in the upper left-hand corner. So that's a good example. And the other one is Social Security. People trying to take advantage of Social Security, maybe for some older persons.
That old rule that if it's too good to be true, it probably isn't,
Yeah.
is no less true now than it was
Yeah,
before.
exactly, particularly with the internet.
Yeah, but things are faster now, that's the
Sure,
problem.
Sure. Well, we're getting down to about 5 minutes, and I wanted to finish the show up a little bit early tonight so we could talk about a friend we both lost, an attorney in Haverhill. But before we get to that, I do have a Latin legal term, and we're going to have that on the screen, and maybe you could explain what that word is. People see it every now and then, E-S-C-H-E-A-T, and maybe you could pronounce it and tell people what that means.
That's a sheet. And
Yeah.
a sheet means when your rights have been affected and you are going to forfeit property. Frequently it's to the state.
To the state.
And it's called a sheet to the state. And
Right.
it's done if you have committed a crime. It's done if you have taken control of a property that's not yours.
Mm-hmm.
It can happen if you have no heirs.
Yeah, let's talk about that just for
Yeah.
a second.
I mean, at the end of the line, if there are no one for you to take your property when you die, you
No
have no
sisters, no brothers, no nieces,
no cousins,
nephews,
no
cousins.
one.
Nope, yeah,
State gets the property, and
Yeah.
it's a sheets to the state.
yeah, exactly.
And it happens more often than you think it would.
Yeah, it does.
I had a case a couple of years ago in Boston where a fellow thought he only had one cousin in the world, the deceased, and the client and his sister probated the estate, and an advertisement ran, and there are people who watch those advertisements
Yeah.
and to come in and see the size of the estate, and then they do tracing looking for heirs,
Right.
and they found a relative
Did they?
Yeah, who ended up being closer in consanguinity
Yeah.
than the petitioners.
Isn't that
And they
amazing?
got most of the $350,000.
Wow, it's
So,
amazing.
another kind of scam.
That's another reason people should make wills.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they get a piece of that action too.
Yeah.
That's the deal.
Yeah.
That's why people should make wills, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to conclude the show talking about a good friend of mine, somebody that I've known for over 35 years, the late attorney Jason S. Cohen. I shared an office building with Jason for over 13 years at 345 Main Street. Jason passed away on June 3rd of 2013. So let's just talk about Jason.
Well, Jason was in town for a long time.
Yep.
At 91, he didn't stop practicing perhaps 3 or 4 years ago.
And he was still working right up until recently.
He was a good representation of the older generation who knew how to represent their clients without making it confrontational.
Right.
He could say what was necessary without raising his voice,
Yeah.
and he could treat his clients in a way that they appreciated and came back to him.
Yeah.
It's an art, and I'm not sure how many younger lawyers learn that art.
Right.
And he was there all the time, and he worked hard.
Sure
He was
did.
there Thursday nights till 10 or 11 o'clock for many years and handled many different kinds of cases. He was my family lawyer when I was growing up, so.
And he was a friend of my late father, Jim Cleary. They were of the same group. World War II vets, Jason and my dad. They went to law school when they came back from World War II. That whole generation, we had some wonderful lawyers in Haverhill. Jason was a mentor, always greeted you with a smile. He did probate work, he did business and corporation work, he did estate planning.
Yes, he did.
He was extremely congenial, and in Haverhill, he was involved with the Haverhill Public Library as a trustee for a long time. He was a clerk of the Greater Haverhill Foundation. He was involved with Pawtucket Bank as a trustee. He gave a lot back to the community, and I'll miss him. I really will miss Jason, as will my twin brother.
And you will miss him also, as will many other people, because he was an example of what it was to practice law many
Right.
years ago,
Yeah.
when it was more of a gentlemanly profession than it is
Yeah,
now.
a lot of courtesy and civility.
Yes,
And I think Jason Cohen, you exemplified that. So
that's right.
as we conclude, a lot to talk about. Thanks for watching. I hope you gathered a little bit of information tonight. Don't respond to that notice if you get it in the mail. You can get a deed for free. Stu Holber, thanks for being my guest.
Thank you for having
Been a
me.
great half hour.
I agree.
Thank you for watching A Lot to Talk About. Have a pleasant evening. I'm Jay Cleary. Good night.